and welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Dave Grohl. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I've just finished reading The Storyteller, which is the memoir of Mr. Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl, the legendary drummer from Nirvana, also the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, both fantastic. But how amazing to have been in both of those bands.
Yeah.
And to play for other people too.
Yeah. He is in fact the third wealthiest drummer in the world.
No kidding. Who were the first two?
Ringo Starr is the
course.
first, and the second is Phil Collins.
Wow. Here he is again. Sir Phil.
Yeah. So, I mean, third in that list is pretty good.
I would say so. Good for him.
Yeah.
So you're a fan?
It's weird, because reading this, I thought I didn't know so much. I don't know the Foo Fighters stuff, not really. But Nirvana were huge, and I was a pop music person, but I did love that album. I had that album, and reading this again brought all the songs back to me. They are so good. And while they seemed quite heavy to my ears, music-wise then, they don't now. They seem like lovely songs. But I get the energy, you know, when it goes down, then it goes up, and it's and then down.
Just from that whole grunge scene, Nirvana was actually very melodic.
Yeah, they really were.
Yeah, so you think like, oh, it's just going to be noise. But actually, when you listen to that album a couple of times, it doesn't take long for those hooks to get into your head.
And, you know, I mean, we'll come back to this, but I'm the mainstream that they managed to reach.
Yeah.
Not on purpose. I'm the horror to them that they reached people like me.
No, no.
It's true. I'm wearing a Michael Jackson t-shirt listening to Nirvana. No, we need to go back underground. Anyway, Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl.
Actually, for once, it's his real name. Born 1969 in Warren, Ohio. Well, then they moved to North Springfield, Virginia, where he actually grew up. And still lives. He seems very loyal to his Virginia.
Yeah, he went out and did his whole massive thing, and he was just desperate to go back. Well, he is a very homely person. He very much wanted his wife and kids and house, didn't he?
Definitely. I'm just going to make a sweeping statement.
Yeah.
He's a really nice person.
I don't think that's sweeping. I think that's intelligence.
Doesn't he seem like a lovely man?
Yeah, and I kind of know he is. Like, I probably know more about the Foo Fighters than you do. He's just generally regarded as a bloody lovely bloke.
Is he?
Yeah, he's just very nice.
Yeah, he's got a real positive outlook to life, hasn't he? I absolutely love the energy of this man. I loved reading this book.
Did you?
I absolutely loved every page of it. It's one of those again. Did you not?
I was frustrated, I guess, because I know so much more.
So are you a Foo Fighters fan?
Yeah.
Nirvana fan?
Yeah.
And I know you love Hole.
Yeah.
So that's a tangent.
I was frustrated with how much was not in this book.
Oh, like what? Because I don't know.
You know what? When we get to the point in the book, it's better that I talk about it, otherwise we're going to get way ahead of
you're
ourselves.
right.
Yeah.
All right, great.
But no, hey, essentially, I really like him, and this is such a nice book, but it is not the rock and roll memoir that I wished it to be.
Oh, okay.
Because he's just so bloody nice.
Yes.
Yes,
wow,
anyway.
And I didn't know, so I loved it. Anyway, so, okay, his dad was a news writer and a Republican, which was an issue a little bit. And his mother was a public school teacher and his hero.
Yeah, she's very cool, isn't she?
Yeah, she's
Mum?
really cool.
Yeah, I liked her a lot.
Yeah, he talks about her taking him to jazz clubs and all that. And then she forced him to get up and play the drums.
For her birthday.
Yeah. She really encouraged him. Yeah, she was really cool.
That was a disaster though, right?
What, when he played the drums?
For his mum's birthday.
Realised that he couldn't.
Yeah, but he was like 30.
Yeah, but then he took the lesson from that one drummer, didn't he? He had one lesson.
Lenny Robertson, who played in the jazz joint, right?
It's hilarious. He says he had one lesson and the main thing he learned was to hold the sticks the other way round. Yeah, so he was self-taught from music records. He's one of those people.
Music records?
Music records. Records? That could be legal records.
They could be. Yeah, they could be. You're quite right. Yeah. I never heard anybody call them music records before.
Okay, rock records, to be specific.
Yeah.
And he used to play the pillows. Pillow drums.
What are pillow drums? It sounds like breasts.
So yeah, he's self-taught from listening to music, and he was drumming along, but just onto pillows. And then he also, weirdly, played on his teeth.
What, with drumsticks?
No. He was grinding his teeth, and he said he could actually, in his head, hear all the drums drumming with his teeth. Years later, he went to the dentist, and they said, "Why are your teeth so ground down?" He said, "Because I drum with my teeth, and it doesn't make sense." I tried it; it doesn't work.
Oh, I do that.
Oh.
When I'm listening to music on my headphones, I go...
Yeah, but that's very simple bongos. He's doing the full rock drumming.
Oh, wow.
The whole thing in his mouth.
Well, like a human beatbox, but on his teeth.
I don't know how. But then when he met Kurt Cobain years later, he found another teeth drummer. Isn't that strange?
Yeah. Perhaps it's more common than you think.
You can try this at home. It does nothing. I can't get any rhythm out of my teeth.
Perhaps you should use your pillow drums then.
Yeah, that would be a lot better. Yeah. Anyway, he really didn't graduate to real drums for a long time.
You know, I get that. People learn to play the piano without an actual piano.
Yeah.
People write down, because obviously musical instruments are expensive, right? Or you might not have room in your house for a piano. And people draw the piano keyboard out and practice playing the music without an actual piano.
Yeah.
So I imagine drums, a lot of it is rhythm. I get how you get better at drumming by tapping your teeth together.
I'll tell you what, it's a lot better for the neighbours.
Yes.
And your parents.
Yes. Well, actually, Phil Collins' parents let him play the drums from the age of 3.
He wasn't even proper drums. He was bashing around on trays and tins and stuff.
Well, he is the second most successful drummer who ever lived.
Well,
so
wealthiest.
I wonder what Ringo's parents, if they let him bash anything out at home.
Yeah, I have. I was just going to say, he had a really nice childhood in the 70s. He was climbing trees, chewing tobacco. A nice, slightly rebellious childhood, but not much.
Pretty standard.
Pretty standard.
Yeah.
And he had alternative culture in him, but he hid it because he wanted to fit in with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He had this girlfriend, Sandy, who dumped him.
Broke his heart.
But
he says that kind of spurred him on to start writing songs and stuff. And he actually can trace the heartbreak of Sandy right back to the beginning of him writing his lyrics and stuff. He says heartbreak is fuel. I think that's, again, probably quite standard in rock and roll,
agree.
Isn't it?
But what about that premonition? That's pretty cool.
About her being in the audience?
Yes.
But I mean, it is weird. Or...
It's brilliant.
Go on then.
Well, after he got dumped, he had a dream that it was an absolutely giant stage. He wasn't even in a band at this point or anything. And he was playing a guitar solo. He didn't even play the guitar then. And it was a sold-out stadium, and Sandy was on the front row, and he was playing at her going, "Look at me, I've made it." It was like a revenge dream. Cut to 2011, which is a good 40 years later, and Sandy actually came to his gig. He hadn't seen her for all that time, and he's suddenly playing the guitar, sold-out stadium. Sandy's on the front row, and he suddenly goes, "Oh my God, this is my dream!" He goes to look at her for this moment of, "You see, I told you so, you shouldn't have dumped me." And she's just got a middle finger up going, "Fuck you, asshole." So, okay, it isn't exactly how I pictured it, but it kind of is immensely close. It's weird because he had the literal dream. It's quite spiritual, isn't he?
Yeah, but I could say that most teenage boys who are into music probably have the dream of being on stage and the girl who just dumped them is in the front row and they're like, "Hi, I showed you." Some of them become massively famous rock stars.
Very few.
But the ones that do all probably have that dream. So it's not spiritual at all. It's just very, very common.
It's very, very cool, isn't it?
It's cool for him.
Yeah.
Why did it take Sandy so long to go and see him in concert?
I don't know. Can't tell you that.
She went backstage to see him afterwards.
Yeah. Wasn't like Phil Collins was, though, was it? He didn't leave his wife for her, though, did he?
No, exactly. So Phil Collins had that dream too?
No, but he had that ex-girlfriend come and visit him backstage and he had a massive
but
affair.
when you're the wealthiest drummer in the world, all your ex-girlfriends come back at some point. Don't you think then Ringo's girlfriends come back too?
Do you think?
After he bashed one out. Why does it jump from that to breaking his leg on stage?
Well, he writes chapters on certain things. We wrote a whole chapter on all the injuries he's ever had, starting with his head getting split open by a golf ball, to, I love the story about, it's 2015 and he's in Sweden on a 50,000-seater stadium. He's at the front playing his guitar at the front of the stage and he sort of wobbles a bit and then he's like, "Oh shit, well, it's all right, I'll just jump down." But it's a long way, it's concrete, yeah. What did he break?
Broke his leg.
He broke his leg.
Well, actually, in the moment, because he's got his microphone, when he's on the floor, after jump, he actually says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think I've broken my leg." And he said the stadium just fell to silence. And then he was helped out, and I think everything was put on hold and the emergency people came. And he said, can I finish the concert?
I think he'd said to the band when they lifted him up, he said, keep playing, didn't he? So they carried on playing, and he was just in the wings. They said, how long would it take to get his leg in a cast? And they said, about half an hour there, half an hour back. He was like, can I just go on and keep playing? And he said, yeah, but I need to hold your leg in place. And he said to the ambulance bloke, well, will you come on with me? And so he went, all right. So he went on stage holding his leg. And they finished the gig to absolute massive triumph. But the ambulance bloke absolutely loved rock and roll, it turned out. And he had the time of his life.
Yeah, of course.
That is absolutely amazing, though, that he did that.
It is amazing. But there's a story that comes up at the end of the book, and I'm going to bring this up again when we get there, because I think it's in complete contrast to, like, the show must go on. But anyway, we'll get
really?
there.
You're going to wait? Ooh. Anyway, he's absolutely covered in scars. He's an injured man.
And his heartbreak is in his songs, but his physical breaks are on stage.
All over him. Yeah.
So his mum was taking him to jazz clubs as a 13-year-old, but when he wasn't with his mum, when he got old enough, he would go to all the alternative music clubs, right? And the little punk clubs.
Well, no, he didn't. It was only when he went to visit his mum's best mate in Illinois that he called Auntie. So it was like the daughter Tracy was his cousin, but wasn't. And she was 13 and he was about 11.
So she seems so much more older and sophisticated. She was a punk though, right?
Yeah, well, he didn't know that. She wasn't the last time he saw her, because they went every summer to visit. He goes this time, and he hears all this jangling coming towards the staircase, and he's like, what the hell? And then she comes down the stairs, and she's a fully fledged punk. I think it was an absolute epiphany, because he'd never met one. And he was like, how cool is this? And he basically raided her brain and her music collection for all of the knowledge. He listened to all this music for the first time. She took him to his first punk gig, and it was Naked Ray Gun. And it was in a dive bar in Chicago. And he said, I always thought the live music would be like Led Zeppelin or Kiss. It would be all the lights and the stadium and the show and the makeup and the costumes. And he's just in this dive bar with just 4 black walls and sticky floor and, and no lights, no costume, and just the atmosphere. And it blew his tiny mind.
He talks about actually him having synesthesia.
What's that?
It's easy for you to say. Which is it's a neurological condition where you kind of see sounds.
Oh, yeah, he really does.
Yeah, so I can get that this young lad is in this dive bar with all the music going around and it being this multi-sensory experience. It's not just like an oral AURAL sensation. It's like it's a whole bodily, whole psychological thing. He's very attuned to music anyway, but I think this whole thing of going to the next big town, meeting Tracy, having this epiphany, and then going and seeing a proper band for the first time, it blows his little mind.
He really is a kid as well.
Yeah.
And she's actually in a band. The guitarist is 11, the other kids are 13. And they've got T-shirts that they've made, and they're booking shows, and he's like, how are you doing this? Then I could do this. Yeah, it's really amazing. Whilst at Tracy's, he found out that this band Scream, his favourite punk band, were actually from his neighbourhood because he saw it written on the record. That was his first clue that he could actually go home and maybe get something going.
Yeah. And he listened to Scream, like that was one of the music records that he would play the drums along to, right?
Yeah.
His pillow drums.
Yeah.
He says he basically learned to play the drums by listening to Scream.
Well, first of all, he built an altar to punk and then prayed for his success, which he comes back to a lot, and he really thinks that it happened because of that prayer.
Well, manifesting is all the rage.
In another way, you just have to know what you want
and
really focus on it to get it. And if that's how he did it, fine. But he got all of his symbols that he prayed with tattooed onto him, is how much he believed in it. But he started playing the actual drums, and they were breaking a lot. So he was in and out of the music shop all the time. And one day there was an advert on the wall saying Scream are looking for a drummer, call Franz. And he couldn't believe this would be his idols.
Yeah, and they were advertising in his local music shop for a drummer.
Because they're from his hood.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did he not know that?
Well,
I guess you just don't back in the day. You don't have all that information.
No, he said the only reason he knew they were from his hood is by reading it on the record at his
Tracy's
house.
house.
Yeah.
Can I just say something about Scream?
Yeah.
He says that Scream formed in 1979 after seeing the legendary Bad Brains play in a tiny venue downtown. Now, have I remembered this right? Do you remember the Beastie Boys book that we read?
Was it Bad Brains?
I think it was Bad Brains. They met at a Bad Brains gig.
It could well have been. And then Run DMC formed from that.
Sonic Youth.
Sorry, Sonic Youth.
Yeah, well, also at that gig.
Yeah.
So that means Bad Brains have really inspired a lot of bands to get together.
Wow.
You should check them out.
Yes.
So he got an audition for Scream at the age of 17. But he didn't tell them he was 17.
No.
Because, of course, you can't be a teenager in a punk band.
No.
Well, you can, but they're older, right?
Yeah.
And they're established.
They're older and established, that's the thing. They were like, what do you want to play? He said, well, I'll play your stuff, obviously. And he played them their entire back catalogue. Yeah. Well, that's going to get you the gig, isn't it? And it did, obviously.
Yeah. He was still in high school, and he was in a band with two of his friends called Dane Bramage.
Dane Bramage. It's brilliant.
So, yeah, he told them he was 21. They were very impressed with him, and they said, come back and jam again. And the band unanimously agreed after they seen him play a couple of times that he was the drummer that they were looking for. But then, don't you find it weird? After getting his dream job at the age of 17, playing with this amazing band Scream, he turned it down. He said because his mum was a teacher, he felt he was letting her down. I get they have such a lovely relationship.
Okay, it's probably because they were going on tour and he'd have had to leave school. Yeah, he'd had to
leave school. And he said it was a massive leap of faith. And he just said at that moment in time he didn't have the courage. So he said no.
And also his dad had Capitol Hill aspirations for his son. Because where they lived, it was really close to the White House. It was just down from Washington.
Yeah.
And that was their nearest place. They could get the bus and go to Washington. Lots of people where they lived worked at the White House. That's what his dad wanted for his son. I bet he's played at the White House loads now.
Yeah,
no, he actually has. It's in the book. What am I saying?
Then after turning Scream down, they carried on with their original drummer called Kent Stax. And then Scream played in town and Dave Grohl went along and then he was like, oh my God, what have I turned down? This is amazing. So after the gig, he got hold of them and he said, look, I do want to be your drummer. And Kent Stax actually had just become a dad, so he didn't want to go on tour. So Scream said, okay, come aboard. And Dave Grohl became the drummer of Scream at the age of 17.
And his dad disowned him. His dad completely disowned him at that point. Didn't talk to him for many, many years.
I kind of do get how if your dad does want you to end up working in the White House,
it's best to never talk to your son again. That's the best way. That's good parenting.
I get how they would be really disappointed at the age of 17 that he effectively ran away with a punk.
Yeah, I do too. It's every parent's probably worst nightmare.
Yeah, but don't not talk to him.
But I know. But his mum just said, you better be good. That's a good attitude. And to be fair, right, he did probably go down a wayward path. It is probably just luck and chance that he accidentally joined Nirvana, isn't it? I know he's good, but...
If my 17-year-old son went to join a punk band with people who were in their 20s, I'd be really worried about him.
Yeah, you don't have a 17-year-old son, I'll just point out.
Don't know.
Hey, don't know. You're not Errol Flynn.
Coming up soon.
Okay, so 1987, they set off on tour in a Dodge van with all the stuff in the back, and there's a platform above the stuff, and all 5 members have to sleep in sleeping bags on top of this platform in the van. He said it was really smelly.
I bet it was smelly.
But he had the time of his life.
Yeah, of course. It's like running away and joining the circus, isn't it?
This is the stuff I enjoyed so much reading. It's just the joy of this person, the freedom of it. The adventure, and he's travelling America, he's seeing his country, and he's so excited, and he told them he was 21, and then by that point he's 18 and he can't get into some of the clubs.
Yeah.
So he has to wait in the van till they play and then leave straight away. And they play CBGBs.
Amazing. A kid who grew up on the B-52s and Diva, and then a couple of years later playing playing CBGBs. It's a dream come true. I wonder if he had that spiritual dream. Well, he must have done when he was a kid.
Yeah, it's the punk rock ground zero. Mm-hmm. And he says, I quote, "We tore CBGB's a new asshole." Yeah, he loves it all. He talks about Detroit and desolate bullet-ridden gas stations in the middle of the night. And he says he's on cloud 9.
Yeah, it was such an adventure.
It's brilliant. He gets $7.50 a day and he spends it on cigarettes, Taco Bell and weed.
What more do you need?
Yeah, no, but it just buys those things. Just. And then also that great thing of smaller bands where all the other bands look after you and they'll all let you kip on their floors. And then, there's that great community.
And he's bumping into Nate Mendel, who became the Foo Fighters bassist and stuff. They're all like teenage punks together, crossing paths, but not quite knowing where their futures are going to end up. Isn't that cool?
It's great. And they end up touring the world and basing themselves in Amsterdam because it's a really good location to get to everywhere in the world. But also they've got weed and it's really, really an adventure. I think there was a couple of years in Amsterdam. But my favourite thing is when they were in California, which was somewhere he never in his wildest dreams thought he would see. Isn't that great? And then one of their mates' mums is putting them up and she's got a lovely house and they go down to the ocean. He's got his feet in the sea, in the Pacific Ocean, and he thinks to himself, can it ever get better than this? That's my favourite bit in the whole book, because you know where he's going and he thinks that's the top. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's so cool.
And then where are they when Iggy Pop turns up?
Toronto.
Right, so they're doing the gig in Toronto, right, in like a little venue, and they can only get in to do their sound check early, right? Because Iggy Pop is there doing
He's doing some promotional gigs just for industry people.
That's right.
For his new album, and it wasn't advertised, and they didn't even know when they went. They were like, why are we getting kicked out? So you can't be here. You can't even be here to watch it. And so they're out, and they don't have the money to go out and sit in the restaurants. They're all in their van just in the back of this venue. And then this car turns up and out walks Iggy Pop just from the car to the back door. And Dave Grohl's going, I've never even seen a bona fide rock star up that close in my whole life. Absolutely amazing, total hero. And he shuts the door and he thinks, that's it. That's all I needed. I just wanted to see him, not knowing what's coming. One of Iggy Pop's blokes comes out, knocks on the van. Any of you a drummer? Yes. Do you want to play with Iggy Pop? Fuck yeah!
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And it's weird because he doesn't seem to have any band with him. Does he play his own guitar? Has he even got a guitarist?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think he does.
I mean, if it's an album launch, perhaps he wasn't even planning on performing, but then he saw the band set up and he thought, well, let's do something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, long story short, little Dave Grohl gets to come in and jam with Iggy Pop.
Yeah, who says, hi, I'm Jim.
Yes.
So he definitely doesn't have his real name.
James Osterberg, I think his name is.
That.
Yeah.
And they jam. And he's like, can you play along with this? And he's like, of course I can. I know all of your music.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they play this song and have a great time. Get on really well musically and everything. And then he says, have you got a bass player? Yes! Goes to the van and gets Skeeter.
Yeah.
So they form an impromptu band.
So they're just having a jam, and then Iggy Pop's like, oh, that's fantastic. He says, we go on at 6 o'clock. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, for one night in Toronto, he's part of Iggy Pop's band.
Yeah, amazing.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, he probably thinks that's going to be the best story he's ever got.
Yeah. So they're just doing this long, extensive tour, Scream, all over the country, all over the world. And it lasts a couple years.
It is, yeah. And then Skeeter, he keeps bottling out of it and leaving them in.
Disappearing sometimes.
Yeah, and if he's not there, they can't do the gig. So he finally leaves them when they're in LA, staying at Pete and Franz from the band. They've got a sister, Sabrina, who's a mud wrestler. She has a nice house in Lauren Canyon with a lot of other mud wrestlers. So they have a good time there. But yeah, Skeeter's gone. So they've got no money to even get home. They're so hand to mouth. If they don't do a gig and get paid, they can't get to the next gig. So they're stuck in LA. He's completely stuck. And then somebody says to him the magic words, have you heard of Nirvana? Life-changing.
Yeah, they were looking for a drummer. Now, Nirvana at this point already had small-time success. He already had an album out.
Called Bleach.
Gosh, he says that first album, Bleach, cost $606 to make.
Yeah, it was that 606, which was the number he had in his altar when he was praying for success, so he felt it was all meant to be.
And yeah, he loved Nirvana, but particularly because of Kurt and his voice, of course.
Yeah.
So he called the bass player, Chris, and they had a nice chat, but it turns out that they'd already filled it with the drummer from the band Mudhoney.
But they loved Mudhoney.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, we can't split up our favourite band. That was why they went with him in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they called him back. And then, long story short, Dave Grohl joins Nirvana.
Now, you probably know a lot about Kurt Cobain, but I didn't, and he just makes him sound like such a nice person.
Yeah, he's generally regarded as a real soft,
poetic,
gentle,
kind.
Yeah.
He just says nothing but lovely things about him.
I don't think he said enough.
You're right, because he didn't even mention Courtney Love.
Well,
he said he had a wife and kid. Yeah, that's it.
Here's one of the things that's missing from this book. Now, recently, we also read Drew Barrymore, who was very famously friends with Courtney Love. She does not even mention her.
No.
Dave Grohl has had extensive falling outs and legal battles and friendship with Courtney Love, lasting 25 years.
Okay.
He hasn't even mentioned her name in this book.
Right. So he doesn't want to get into any legal stuff, do you think?
He doesn't, but I also just think he just doesn't want to talk about her.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to write your memoir and somebody's had such an effect on your life, he might say that she hasn't. But if somebody's been such a part, even negatively, I think you at least need to acknowledge it because it's part of who you are.
That's right.
It's part of your story.
Well, I didn't know that. To me, this book is a real musical journey. So maybe if you'd have shoved that in, it would have detracted from the musical journey.
But she got ownership. After Kurt died, she got ownership of all of Nirvana's back catalogue and stuff. Really? This is what all the fights are about, you see. It really became a massive thing linked to the music. So I'm surprised that he just doesn't even talk about that. She's such a divisive character. Perhaps he just doesn't want to give her the satisfaction of even talking about her ever again. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not to give her any power through.
Yeah. It was just, I kind of thought, you can't tell me the fully rounded, honest story of your life if you don't talk about these very big chapters, which obviously had an effect on you at some point.
Right.
And I was quite surprised at how quickly he talked about Kurt and then tied it all up with a bow and moved on.
He does, yeah.
And you kind of think, well, that's such a defining moment. He does say that it was a massive moment that changed his life kind of thing. And then you kind of think, well, Nirvana really only lasted for a couple of the years. And the Foo Fighters have lasted 25. Yeah. So really, in the book of your life, perhaps Nirvana is just a chapter, actually.
Exactly. I didn't realise that when I just imagined that he'd come up with the band and maybe they were his childhood mates or something. Mm-hmm. I didn't realise he popped in for one album and that was it. So maybe it is just, that's what I got from this book, that it actually is a massively impactful but actually quite
a short period of time.
Intense period of time, yeah.
I mean, intense, my God.
Intense.
The rise to fame is like, you don't even have time to think about
because,
it.
Because, he said that they went to a music executive's office for a meeting and Kurt said, we want to be the biggest band in the world. And he says, I thought he was joking. But they couldn't possibly know they were going to be because the music they were making was not popular. It was really alternative. They couldn't have known that they were going to change the musical landscape, which is what they did. It actually says that it was 3 bands were spearheading the takeover of popular mainstream culture. And it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana and Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
So they all came up at the same time and completely changed music.
It was huge, wasn't it? That whole wave. I mean, it was called grunge. It put Seattle on the map. But yeah, it changed radio. It changed what people were listening to. It changed the music industry because then all of a sudden 100 grunge bands got record contracts
because they wouldn't have got on the radio. They weren't mainstream. It's amazing. He does write a lot about when they were rehearsing 5 days a week. They were hardly doing any gigs because they didn't want to oversaturate themselves. And he was staying in a little apartment with Kurt. Kurt had the bedroom and Dave was sleeping on a sofa. And then he describes that there's a Kurt's turtle in a tank that spends all night tapping on the glass trying to get out. It's a vivid description because you can just imagine him on this short sofa trying to sleep and this little tap tap, and then in the distance, like quietly Kurt in his room playing guitar and singing and writing those songs just from this tiny hovel they're sharing. And out comes Polly, Breed, Lithium, Come As You Are, In Bloom, On a Plane, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Oh my God, all classics.
Yeah.
Life-changing classics.
It is weird because when that album did come out, I kind of just thought it's not my thing either. But then you kind of just end up hearing it because it was being played everywhere. And when it comes on, you kind of think, oh, I'm not going to like this. And then within a minute, it's kind of, oh my God, this is really good. It's because of the melody, actually, which you're not expecting in such a heavy-sounding song.
Yeah, the words and then just the energy of it.
And the voice.
The emotions of it. You can't even explain it. It's just, it's brilliant. Seems to me that this made itself. It wasn't particularly promoted. Nobody knew it was going to be that big. But It was such good music. It seems to me that it almost went viral, before that was a word, because it's so good.
Well, they did all of these songs, and they worked with Butch Vig, who is the guy behind Garbage. So they were all coming up together, but they signed to Geffen Records, and the reason they did that is because they'd signed Sonic Youth, who of course were brilliant.
So it might be the Bad Brains connection.
Yeah. And they knew, because Geffen had signed Sonic Youth and not distorted their music or over-commercialised them anyway. Yeah, they knew they were safe to sign with what essentially is a major record label. So they did have the Geffen company behind them. And again, Geffen, when they signed them, probably thought, oh, this is another little band like Sonic Youth who are going to tick away on the indie scene and stuff. They probably knew they were going to have success, but you can't predict the world domination of an album like Nevermind.
No way. And they recorded that album in 12 days in the studio, and they recorded it live. That's what some magic is captured, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they went on a tour for 40 days. When they got back, they were rich and famous. It's that classic thing. Yeah. Also, the weird thing happened because they made a video for Smells Like Teen Spirit. Cheap. I watched it. Again, I'd never seen it before, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And it's just in a studio, and there's a lot of young people, high school rebellion and all that. And it just took off. And so it was getting played on MTV in the middle of the night. Like the first time they saw it, they were in a hotel room going, holy shit, we're on TV. And then, there's enough people phoning in probably saying, can we see this again? And it ends up on the normal TV times. And they're just off. They just took off. And then there's ordinary people enjoying it.
Now, this is the trouble when you're like this cool little indie thing. Then all of a sudden, the Beastie Boys said the same thing. Yeah. As soon as they kind of crossed over and were getting heavy rotation on mainstream channels, all of a sudden you're appealing to everyone. And then the people like at school, like the jocks and stuff who they didn't like, were turning up en masse to their shows.
The people that would have bullied them.
Yeah, exactly.
Are now coming to see your shows, and you don't want them there. No, they want to play these gigs for teenage...
For the dropouts.
Dropouts and alternative people.
And it changes the atmosphere for those people at the gigs as well, if you've got a bunch of lads and stuff. Yeah.
I know. So they weren't happy. They weren't unhappy, but they were very confused by it.
Saturday Night Live was a massive landmark for Dave Grohl because he grew up watching it and he saw the B-52s on it. But when he started playing, his drumstick broke. Yeah. It was like, damn it. But that was the moment where the whole of America discovered Nirvana. So they were creeping up. And then all of a sudden...
Yeah, they knocked Michael Jackson off the number one spot.
Michael Jackson off the number one spot in the mainstream charts.
I saw both bands in that year. Michael Jackson and Nirvana.
Where did you see Nirvana?
At the Reading Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing because they mention it. Because they said the Reading Festival was their last UK gig ever. And I didn't know that. And I was there.
Wow.
And he came on in a wheelchair, as I recall. And then they smashed all the guitars up at the end and all that.
I love that when they went to Japan and Dave Grohl smashed the drum kit to pieces at the end of the gig, the rep for the Japanese drum company was in the audience, and he came back and he was really upset because he thought he was smashing them up because he thought the drums were shit.
Yeah, he's like, what's wrong with the drums I got you?
And Dave Grohl had to then explain to him the Western rock and roll tradition of smashing up instruments at the end of your set as a mark of respect and celebration. But this poor Japanese guy thought he did it because he didn't like them. That's hilarious. I love it.
Oh, by the way, when he joined Nirvana, he was suddenly on $15 a day.
Wow.
He thought he was rich.
Yeah.
It's so cool. He got $400 advance when he joined Nirvana, and he spent it on a BB gun, some sort of computer game thing, and a tattoo. And all his money was gone again. But yeah, at this point, he's got his first credit card. He's got more tattoos. He can eat.
And he's 23.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's something we always kind of forget, is just that a lot of the time when these massive bands go globally famous, they're young.
They're really young.
But he's also saying, he came in to Nirvana for the second album, so they weren't friends who grew up together. And, he did live with Kurt for a short period of time when they were making the album. Then all of a sudden, very quickly, they were out on tour. massive mainstream success, staying in hotels. And then when they got their first break, they all went to different parts of the country, didn't really see each other. And then when they came back together, Dave Grohl says the divide just became so obvious. They probably didn't have time to even think about it.
No, they didn't. But the divide being that Kurt was obviously on drugs. I mean, he was on heroin.
Yeah, he was. And Dave says he feels naive in a way, because even when he shared the very small flat with Kurt, and Kurt would be in his room playing his guitar, you think he was probably doing heroin in there.
He probably was.
But Dave was never into drugs, so he didn't realise.
And he kept it from him. It's not like...
Yeah.
Yeah, he kept it secret. And he wouldn't have realised. And obviously at this point it was starting to really take its toll, and he could see how vulnerable he was. And
yeah, he's getting
weak.
really withdrawn.
Yeah, fragile. He said he found it shocking when they suddenly came back together. And then they went on tour to Australia, so there was no stopping. There was no time to deal with it.
Yeah, and he says even when they were on a break, Kurt had become the darling of the alternative press and stuff. So even when they weren't working, Kurt's face was on all the magazines and stuff. Dave says a really good sentence. He says, that level of fame is a life sentence that most are not prepared to navigate. Yeah. Now, we know that from reading these books.
Yeah, especially this lovely, shy, gentle, kind person. Yeah. But then Dave had it really good because he was the drummer at the back. So he had all this fame and acclaim and money. But he didn't get recognised, so he had a freedom.
Yeah.
So, okay, in 1994, he does skip to there. He pretty much, that's all he really tells you about Nirvana. And suddenly he gets a call saying he's gone, Dave.
Yeah, he knew that Kurt had gone into a rehab in LA. He was concerned about it, but at the same time, he was like, oh, good. Because he's going to go and get himself sorted out. Yeah, and then he got the phone call saying that he's gone. But he wasn't gone.
No, he said he was in instant grief. He was sobbing. And then the phone rings again. It says, oh, sorry, he's not gone. He's come through it. He obviously had an overdose.
He got to hospital, but he
pulled through. Yeah. And so he said, basically, he thinks that he built up walls because 36 days later, he got another call saying he's actually died, and he couldn't even cry. And he never could cry again. He couldn't process his grief at all because he'd used it up. I do get that. And he's never managed to process grief since because of that shocking 2-minute moment of his life. And he talks about his old friend Jimmy, who he lived with for ages, and he died young. And he says both of them are people that he thinks about every single day of his life, which proves how close he actually was to Kurt, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, and they went through such an extraordinary experience together, and it was an intense period of time. Plus, they made amazing music and got to play it together, you know? Gosh, and Dave Grohl, by the time Kurt died, Dave Grohl's only 25.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and he's having to deal with all of that.
He says, I had to learn to live again. He couldn't play for nearly a year at all, didn't pick up drums, didn't know what to do with his life. And it was Tom Petty who pulled him out of it. Because he phoned him up and said, can you be our drummer?
On Saturday Night Live?
Yeah. And so he went to rehearse and he was like, I'm not sure I can do this. And then all of the guys was so lovely to him, and Tom Petty was a hero. And he just found he could do it. And he really enjoyed it. They actually asked him to join the band, which would have been another way for him to go, because he still wasn't known. Nobody knew the word Dave Grohl unless you're a Nirvana fan, like we do now.
Yeah.
And they really thought about it.
Well, Tom Petty said to him, come on tour with us. He says, it's not like any tour you've been on. He says, we've all got our own coaches.
Yes.
And he says, we don't do a gig every night. He says, it's really laid back. You're going to be taken care of. It's paid well. And Dave Grohl is just, oh my God, it sounds amazing. But I'm 25 and I still have so much to do, and I'm still hungry for punk music and stuff.
Yeah, because what playing that gig had done is release in him all this music that he had in him and lyrics and stuff. So he decided to spend the time recording his own stuff, and he laid all the music down himself because he's obviously a bloody brilliant musician. He could play the guitar, drums, whatever. He could play it all. So he made this whole album. There's loads of like 16 songs, 15 songs, and made a tape. And he made 100 copies, and he put them in the boot of his car, or otherwise known as the trunk. And he was going to drive around, just give them to people. So this is my music. It's just a way of him coming through his grief, actually. And then when that Tom Petty thing came up, he was like, I'm now at a crossroads. Do I go this way, or do I follow my tapes that are in my car? And he went, do you know what? I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
I've got to follow the dream still. And that led him to bomb the Foo Fighters, basically.
Yeah, that Tom Petty gig was a brilliant gig if you're like 45 and done your time in the music industry. It's like a nice thing that you've earned. Yeah. But no, Dave Grohl was so far
had to be Dave Grohl. Yeah.
I love that he was writing songs when he was in Nirvana, but there's no way he would let anybody listen to them because he was a drummer, and historically drummers just don't write music. But who knew behind the drum kit in Nirvana, this guy was writing amazing songs.
Phil Collins and Dave Grohl.
And Ringo Starr.
Does he write his own music, or is he?
Yeah, he did have a solo career, actually.
Not as successful as
I think he was the first solo Beatle to have a #1 in America.
What?
I could be wrong. He also narrates Thomas the Tank Engine.
I know.
Phil Collins hasn't reached those giddy heights.
No, he hasn't.
Still time.
Yeah, he got his musicians together, the Foo Fighters, and he'd bought a house in Virginia, installed a recording studio in the basement, and they all recorded there. They recorded it in their own time. They were free to do it. They didn't have to pay any studios. And a year and a half later, he won a Grammy for Best Rock Album. And he said he had a massive pride because he created it independently and won a Grammy. So it wasn't on any label. It was just them. That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing, actually, how the Foo Fighters did take off because he was known as a drummer. I mean, that probably hasn't happened other than Phil Collins. That probably doesn't happen very often.
No.
That the drummer in a band becomes the leader and main songwriter of a new band that goes on to match the success of the previous band. But it's because the songs are particularly good.
Yeah.
And, testament is their 25-year career. They're still playing now.
25 years. They absolutely sell out arenas, stadiums, whatever, all the time. Yeah, everyone loves them.
Oh, I've seen them. I saw them. Right, no. Now, I used to work on a lot of festivals and stuff, right? Foo Fighters were headlining V Festival, right, which is exciting in itself. But, like at festivals, they have separate, smaller stages.
Yeah.
And the name of one band opening this other small stage at midday was called something like the 404 707, not the 606. Anyway, it was numbers, right? And I remember saying to my boss, "Who's this band?" And she leant over to me like in a whisper and said, "Don't tell anyone." She says, "It's the Foo Fighters. They just want to come on."
It'll be 606. I bet it was.
Maybe it was.
I don't know, but yeah.
They just want to come on and play.
Amazing.
So I went down there at lunchtime and there were about a couple hundred people there. And all of a sudden the Foo Fighters come on and just have this gig. By the end of it, obviously loads of people had come over. But I was like right near the front of like this gig in daylight of the Foo Fighters. It was just crazy.
Oh, you see, that's nice people if they want to do that.
Yeah.
That's good people.
They're in it for the music, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then did you see the main gig?
Yeah.
Was it good? Same better?
Of course, the smaller was better. Yeah, because it's just something special that nobody else knows about.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, lucky, hey?
Yeah. Nice. At this point, he's married a woman, Jordan, and he's got 3 girls, Violet, Harper and Ophelia. So he's moved back to Virginia, got this recording studio in his house. He's working really hard. And
can I say something about the wife and daughters?
Yeah.
So I had a picture on my Facebook feed from a Dave Grohl fan page yesterday, and it was a picture of Dave Grohl and his wife and his 3 daughters. They all look like Courtney Love at varying degrees of her life.
Oh my God.
His wife looks like Courtney Love.
Oh, wow.
His daughter looks like Courtney Love's daughter. The other daughter's got brown hair, looks like Courtney Love. Brown. It's like that weird. Woman is haunting him somehow.
He chose that.
He chose it.
Yes.
He chose it. He's secretly in love with Courtney. That's what it's all about. That's why he doesn't mention her.
Yeah. Because his wife would be jealous. Have you ever seen them together?
Oh.
There's a lot of funny stuff about coffee, by the way, because he's a coffee addict. He says you can look at it on YouTube, and I did.
Oh, I did, and I forgot. Is it good?
It's really funny, actually.
Is he insane?
Yeah, he's completely insane. It's like he's on speed.
I mean, because he's going mad at this point, because he has 2 bands, right?
Yeah, what's his other band called?
Them Crooked Vultures.
Yes, who's in it? It's really good.
It's John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin and Josh Homme. And they're a band, them Crooked Vultures, which if you like the Foo Fighters, you will love them Crooked Vultures.
I imagine so.
But he's doing the project of them Crooked Vultures, and they booked the studio out, but then something with the Foo Fighters comes up at the same time.
Yeah, they're doing daytime rehearsals, Foo Fighters, nights on them Crooked Vultures. He goes home to a baby, all of that, and he's just drinking coffee.
And he just basically says, "No, don't worry, I can do it all."
Yeah.
Yeah, caffeine is powering him through, but it's not good for
it's driving him insane. Yes, one of his bandmates or someone made a little video of all the times where he's going, fresh pot, and drinking coffee, and it's on YouTube. And it's really funny, but it's not funny because he nearly had a heart attack.
Yeah, he's getting really bad chest pains and stuff.
Yes.
Of course, because you can't really operate. He's 40 at this point. You do have to start taking care of yourself.
I mean, he could have been on worse drugs, so that's lucky.
The truth.
But he's on coffee. And it's very cheap, so probably saved quite a lot of money.
And I don't think there's no long-lasting after effects of drinking too much caffeine.
That's
whereas
right.
if you were doing hard drugs...
Yeah, so he got off the coffee and he's all right now.
Yeah. And the doctor said to him, there's no signs of real danger, but you've got to take it easy. The prescription was play drums only 3 times a week, have a glass of wine before bed, and lay off the coffee. And he says, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So which is the one that he doesn't do?
That's what I was thinking. Which is the one he doesn't do?
A glass of wine before bed?
Probably.
He's not going to give up the drums and give up coffee, is he?
Well, he did give up... Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Probably gave up coffee. But anyway, it's nice. It's like, this man really appreciates life. He really loves life. And he loves the opportunities.
Oh, so look, direct quote from the book. Not a day goes by where I don't stop and thank the universe for these otherworldly blessings, and I make it a point to take nothing for granted. Yeah. And that really comes across in
it really does.
Yeah, he's a good bloke.
Do you know what he is?
Right, can I just say something that really annoyed me?
Yeah.
I want to know if it annoyed you.
What?
When he's on tour in Australia, and then he realises that one of the dates clashes with the daddy-daughter dance at her daughter's school.
No.
What, you disapprove of what happened?
Yeah.
So they've sold out an arena of, 50,000 people? Back home in America, there's a thing at the daughter's school where all the dads come and have a dance with them. And he's horrified that he's not going to be there. He thinks it's so important.
Because he's promised.
He's promised his daughter. So he reschedules a date.
A whole arena gig.
Inconveniencing 50,000 people.
Yes.
So he can fly in a day, back, dance with his daughter.
Yeah, so some of those 50,000 people will have booked hotels, transport. Yeah. They won't get their money back.
And he's told us this story because it shows us what a devoted and responsible dad he is. Actually, it tells me you really pissed off 50,000 of your fans.
Yeah.
And also, this is the thing at the beginning where he broke his leg and he's like, I won't go to hospital. I'm going to finish the gig for these people. The show must go on. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to dancing with his daughter on the other side of the world, he'll happily inconvenience 50,000 people. You know what? Look, here's the thing about this. It's like we always, well, I do. Complain when people have kids and they don't.
And they're not there for them. Yeah. So when they are, it's somehow annoying as well.
Yeah. No, if you don't have kids, don't have them. Because you're either going to annoy your kids or annoy your fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that was just too much. Also, it's kind of like, remember when Will Smith and
Yes, it's
Jada,
a little bit like that.
They were on a film set, but they flew once a week to see their kid play sports. It's just like so unnecessary. It's performative parenting.
Yeah.
And he's doing it so everybody could say, oh, what a fantastic dad. Well, do you know what? You're not a fantastic dad. You're a rock star and you can't be both. All right. So
I actually think he genuinely did it so as not to disappoint his daughter. But when he actually got there and did this dance, the daughter just wanders off to talk to her mates and she has no clue what he's been through to get there. She doesn't really care he's there.
Yeah.
So in a way, it was a little bit of a wake-up call. You don't have to do that much, actually.
You don't have to do that much.
But then he says, years later, he said, yeah, do you not realise I flew all that way just for your thing? And she said, why? He said, because I had to. And she thought for a minute and then went, yeah, you did have to.
Yeah.
So...
What spoiled...
Yeah.
And on that note... Wow.
On that note, well, the show goes on still, so we'll look forward to book 2 of this man's life.
I don't. I won't bother reading book 2. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. We're new to this and you could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography. So make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue. So make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.